about a controversial topic, probably the dark side of the industry, but we're talking about drugs and alcohol in the industry. So, to preface this, this is something we kind of toyed with back and forth, whether it was something we wanted to talk about, knowing it can definitely be a sensitive topic to some people, but we felt that it was good to, just bring light to it, I guess.
Yeah. Well, like a lot of other industries, like it's a real thing. Mm-hmm. And there's no denying that there's a lot of pressure in the hair industry as far as schedules, pressure on stylists, but even so, like social settings, and there's a lot of entertaining factors to this industry, like traveling for going to hair shows and classes and stuff. I mean, a lot of times that could be in Miami, Vegas, and New York City. I mean, that screams party central. So there's no denying that substance abuse is a real thing in our industry, unfortunately.
Not just, I think any service-based industry too. Like any industry where you're dealing with people all day long, I think is where it's kind of more popular, I guess, because, I mean, we'll get into why, but I just think like if you're in some type of industry where you're constantly dealing with people and, being emotionally drained is where people kind of tip into that lifestyle.
Yeah, I would agree. And then I also feel like for our industry, it's almost like, I don't know if I'm right by saying this, but I feel like there is a higher tolerance for it. As far as a career than there would be in other more professional settings. Like, for instance, I feel like our industry is one of those where, partying's, I wouldn't say it's
welcomed.
It's welcomed.
It's accepted.
Yeah. I mean, and even us, as salon owners, like we love the parties.
Yeah.
We have them, we host them. We enjoy bringing everybody, the camaraderie of everybody coming together and celebrating outside of the salon. We're about that. And that's done a lot of positive things for us and our companies, but there's definitely a side to that can be hard. And I think like it's important just to kind of talk through some of it a bit. I think if it's okay, I think I should start by saying I can remember back when I was toying with getting into the salon industry, and I don't know how the conversation happened, but it was with my dad, and it got kind of heated, and at some point he basically snapped on me and was just like, I know what goes on in this industry, and I don't want you a part of it, and I was 19, 18, something like that.
I got the same conversation with him when I wanted to go to hair school. He had the false perception that every hairstylist is into cocaine and partying and drugs and staying out all night, and he just and I don't know if that was like a big thing, and I kind of think it may have been back in the 80s with hairstylists, like they were huge partiers apparently. From what just from people in the industry that were big like timers in their 80s, like they would tell you like it was all sex, drugs, rock and roll, and hair. Yeah.
And cigs. Yeah, if you weren't smoking.
One thing I actually find interesting, and I just was trying to get some, whenever we talk on a topic, I hate not knowing facts and having statistics and knowing the trends and stuff. So one thing I just did quickly was I just wanted to see what the trend is. Is it like, was it bigger back then or is it on the rise now? And I kind of was really surprised. And the trends that I found on like the sites that I was on is showing that there's a rise in all substance abuse, from marijuana, prescription drugs, cocaine. And you guys are going to really shock you right now. You want to know what they're saying? The reason behind the rise is?
What?
Who's ready for it?
Yep.
How do you guys not even know this?
Come on.
Politics?
It's the blame for all. COVID-19.
Oh.
So apparently after the COVID-19 pandemic, our industry, and along with a lot of other industries, including doctors, are saying just totally turn to drugs to deal and cope, and
that makes total
never
sense.
got off it.
To be honest, I feel like
a rise in alcohol.
Because they got addicted during COVID?
I don't know. I need to do some more
with...
research into that. I just read that COVID-19 is a strong reason behind the increase in alcohol and substance abuse.
Well, let's talk.
But not just with our industry, with a lot of industries.
I think it's with the world in general.
It definitely
is. Like, think about this. They, with COVID-19, we're all, locked in, in our houses with ourselves and our kids and all this stuff. And I think mental health took a turn at that point.
Yeah.
You know, rise in anxiety and depression, obvious. And how do you treat anxiety and depression? Drugs.
Yeah.
Like, this is, you know.
And not to mention, like, marijuana is becoming legal in so many states. So it's like people are just freely doing it now.
And at this point, I mean, it is definitely, marijuana in general is just looked at as such a nonchalant thing. You know, like, I think at this point you just assume most people do it in our industry. You know, like, that's not shocking or surprising to me at all. So I think there is, like, there's a tolerance to that part of it that we've all acquired over the years, and it sounds like COVID was the final hop in that.
Yeah, one of the other facts that I saw was according to, actually I'm going to read it from my phone because I don't want to mess this fact up, but according to the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Service Administration, the beauty industry ranks among the top 10 professions for substance abuse.
I believe it.
Is so, that sucks.
What's number one?
I don't know.
Does
It doesn't
say?
list it. I'm going to have to go back and look and see if I can find the list. Actually, I'll Google that right now.
Well, while
Since Google
doing
tells
that,
it all,
talk
right?
about.
I think there's a lot of contributing factors though too that like make it okay. So like one, you have the schedule of a hairstylist, which is usually when you're starting out, like you're working afternoons into the night, which leaves opportunities for, you know, you to grab a drink after work. That leads into drinking all night because you don't need to wake up early the next day to go to work.
Yep.
And also like being with other people like in the industry. So like you're working Saturdays, you want to blow off some steam after work, you go to the bar, you go to your friends, whatever the case may be.
Happy hour.
Yeah. And again, like back to dealing with people, you know, you're taking on the emotions of, I don't know, you could be dealing with 10 different people with different personalities and different situations that you have to adapt to in one day. So it's like coping with that at the end of the day.
Yeah, the emotional piece of it alone.
Yeah.
Like, I can remember being behind the chair and working a 12-hour day and coming home, and I still lived at home at that point, and I would get home and I would just be so physically, mentally, emotionally exhausted that like my mom would be like, how's your day? And I'm like, don't talk to me. You know, like, so it's like, you want to blow steam. So if you, in those scenarios, do you want to go get a drink?
Yeah.
My answer was never no.
Absolutely.
It was always yes, you know? And, you know, over the years, I feel like it's kind of just gotten worse.
Yeah.
Which goes to the stats that you just said. Like, that sort of doesn't surprise me.
I was surprised. I thought, I don't know. I just feel like it.
You felt like it was worse in the 80s.
Yeah, I feel like, I mean, even just from things that I've been to, like, I feel like everything seems pretty tamed, but I don't know.
I kind of thought, so I feel like our generation grew up in a very alcohol driven society. We were out drinking in the woods at a very young age, like what, like 16, 15.
Yeah, but I think that was all generations. Like, I know my parents and all,
do you
like,
think so now? Because I feel like right now, like, not drinking is more normalized for some of the younger generations than it was. Like, it's like cool for them to like sit in and
I
and
think
not
that there's
go out.
definitely a higher focus on other things like sports and stuff like that now, like more so than when I was little. I mean, sports were huge growing up, like in high school and stuff and college, but I just feel like now these parents, and it's my generation of parents, have their kids involved in a million different sports, and they're so hardcore, like travel teams, and our summers are dedicated to tournaments. And I mean, so I think in a sense, like, that's good because it keeps them occupied.
They don't have time to drink.
Yes. And the parents are so involved in it all. It's like, you're not getting drunk after your basketball or baseball game because your mom and dad are right there with you on this tournament. I mean, I don't know. Maybe they do. I don't know.
Also,
I don't
like,
know how it works,
technology
but
probably plays a pivotal role because you have cameras on you at all times. There's the thing where
everything you
can
do.
ping your location. Like, we didn't have that. We would like three-way phone call.
Yeah.
And be like, yeah, I'm sleeping at so-and-so's.
So true.
But anyway, we were around it so much at a very young age that like it was just like kind of normalized.
Yeah.
And like now I think this generation is a little bit set up for more success in the sense that like they're not always going out partying. Like, it's okay to like sit at home and not do anything.
Yeah.
Be an introvert, I guess.
That's definitely a change I think that has happened. Because I think back to when we were like super young, you know, grade school, high school days, and like this wasn't a thing. Like social media, like I wasn't sitting at home on this. I was at the mall smoking cigs behind the movie theater, you know, or like
Picking up butts
doing
off the
things.
grass.
It'll literally doing things that like you know like getting into trouble.
Yeah.
And I think now what they say is like now that I have kids and I am terrified of what they're going to be like as teenagers and young adults, and I'm like I got to keep their asses busy because otherwise they're going to get into trouble like I did.
Yeah.
And I think that the phone and the social media thing does bring some sort of entertainment that is outside of having to physically leave your house and go to whatever you might have been doing. But in regards to our industry, yeah, I mean, it's I feel a very easy industry to end up
Yeah.
in an avenue where you may be, you know, drifting into not the greatest directions. And you know, like I've said, we love it. We love to party. We like to be in that group setting where we're all, you know, blowing off steam and having fun and enjoying one another, and the alcohol's flowing. But there's definitely a point where it can get a little aggressive.
Yeah.
And I just worry that sometimes, you know, I think if you're a little bit older, you have more of a balance and you're able to recognize it. But when you're 19 years old in the industry making money, you know, making money, working this schedule that could potentially support that type of habit, it's a little scary.
Yeah. So not only like the schedule, I feel like whenever we were going to an industry event, like we knew we were getting alcohol.
Obviously.
So when that's constantly being like a thing, you know, it's like, all right, well, we're going to this hair show or we're going to, you know, this thing, like we're going to catch a buzz there and then we're going to go out after. So I feel like that's another thing. It's like constantly being put in your face and like an opportunity for you to drink. One thing I think we should probably talk about is like prescription drugs in the industry with mental health. And, you know, when those situations arise, like I think the first thing people go to is their doctor.
Adderall.
Oh,
I mean, I think Adderall is a major part of that. I mean, over the years, I feel like Adderall is a prescription drug that everybody has normalized.
Yeah.
And even if you're not prescribed to it, like it would be a nonchalant conversation for you to be in the break room being like, oh, you know, I'm exhausted. I didn't sleep great last night. And someone might be like, oh, hey, take an Adderall. You're gonna feel so much better. Like that's, you know, that's kind of like how nonchalant some of these prescription drugs are at this point.
Yeah. Anti-anxiety, Xanax.
Anti-anxiety, Xanax. Laughing at you that one time.
Should we want to air me out right now?
I'm gonna air you out. That was so funny. Yeah, what was that?
I had a toothache and Advil wasn't cutting it. And
oh, dude, you were in such pain. Like it was bad. I'm not gonna lie. I remember that you were in like a lot of pain.
Yeah. Advil wasn't cutting it. So I phoned a friend for some prescription drugs and I took, what did I take? A Percocet?
Was it a Percocet?
I took a half of a Percocet and it didn't do anything. And then I wound up taking the other half and I had to like
on a different planet.
Clock out.
Yeah. I walked in. I was like talking to you. I remember like saying something. I was like, you know, whatever. And you were like, I don't know what you're saying right now. And I was like, you should probably go home.
Well, I also feel like there are so many people that suffer from addiction solely from incidences like that. Like, I mean, personally, I know some people that have had issues with dentists that would just prescribe them. Like, they would have a mouth infection and they would put them on an antibiotic and a painkiller. Yeah. And, I mean, now the rules are just so much stricter. But, like, you know, back 10, 15, 20 years ago, like, they would just write scripts for anything and people were becoming addicted to it. You know, and it's unfortunate. So, I mean, it does sometimes happen from just a toothache.
It absolutely does. And that's what's kind of scary.
I dodged a bullet there, huh?
But while we're on this leash, why don't, I think we should talk about, you know, you. I would like to use you as an example for, you know, the audience and the whole world of where you're at with your, you know, alcohol journey.
Yeah. So I've quit drinking in February of 2024, mainly because of the hangovers and I have kids. But I wouldn't say that I had like a problem. I would say that it was problematic, I guess, where it was to the point where I would not feel 100% from like Sunday to Tuesday. And I just kind of felt like every chance I could get, I had, like, would turn to alcohol. Like, it was, you know, from Thursday night till Sunday, just like not drinking entirely, but just like, you know, going out, having drinks, getting drunk. And it just like kind of affected my performance as an owner, affected my performance as a mom. And I just felt like I relied on it, and I hated that.
Yeah. Because I feel like you and I have, we've been on this journey together for a long time, lady.
Yeah.
What's it been, like 20 years we've been best friends?
And I've always like admired the people like you who can go out and like have one drink, you know what I mean? And I think I can't do that. You know what I mean? I'm an all in or an all out type of person. And I feel like there's a lot of people that do hair that are like that.
Well, I feel like I learned at an early age because I had kids early and I was young. I was 23 when I had my first baby, and all my friends were out, you know, in New York City and down the shore and having a ball, getting drunk all night, not coming home. And I couldn't do that.
Yeah.
And then when I did do it, it's not fun coming home to an infant
Right.
who depends on you and needs you, and you can't even take care of yourself, let alone a baby. Yeah. So I recognized early on, like, I need to have limits. And that's why, like, I found my sweet spot. Like, 1 or 2 drinks for me is enough to take off the edge, but not throw me over the edge. That's, I learned that early.
Yeah,
thanks
because
to being a teen mom.
Teen mom. Shout out.
Yeah, like, I don't, being your sister, I don't, like, ever remember seeing you, like, hammered. Like, I really don't.
Well, and I tell the story
Probably
all the
because
time.
I was hammered too. Is that what it was?
Yeah, you were way more wild in your younger years than I was. But I do say this, like, I was going through a period where I was out all the time. I was, you know, living it up, partying it up, and I feel like I got pregnant. There was a purpose behind it.
No, yeah.
It was like God's way of being like, all right, we're going to put you back on the right track because you're going down a bad path right now. And that wasn't me. And I knew I had parents that would never put up with that. And although they did with you, I don't know why, but
They did, but you know what? I mean, listen, I had my fair share of wild days, but they always drove home the message of like even I can remember like breaking an arm or something crazy and like being prescribed something and mom being like, oh no, you're not taking that.
Yeah.
Or like she was so heavy in my head about like how dangerous prescription pills and drugs are from such an early age that like I was kind of like terrified of it, to the point where alcohol, all right, like, you know, whatever, but I wasn't going for any of that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was never, I'm the kind of person also, like, I recognized early on, I don't like not feeling in control. Like, I mean, I smoked weed when I was younger, maybe 1 or 2 times, and I hated my life. Like, I hated that feeling of like.
Tell us the pie story.
Well, the whole pie story is the reason why I never smoked weed again, because I
you eat a whole
literally
pie?
I ate a whole entire pie because I was like, I had the munchies, which is disgusting. And I was like, is this what my life's going to be like? I'm just going to get high and then eat entire pies and then have to go to the gym for 3 days straight. And, you know, but it was terrible. Like, that was a life lesson for me. But the real reason why I never dabbled in drugs was like, I was never an experimentative person. I just always wanted to know, like, well, if I do that, what am I going to do? Like, how am I going to feel? Like, I had way too many questions to even, like, try something, and I just don't trust anything. And, like, I just know, like, mommy always did a really good job teaching me, like, even if you think you're smoking marijuana, chances are there's probably 30 other drugs in it. Yeah. And you don't know. It could be that one time. Like, she kind of scared me.
Yeah.
Like, don't ever do this because you never
too.
know. Like, that one time could be the one that just ends it for you. Like,
yeah, well, she's right. We're in like
and
a fentanyl crisis.
I
now.
valued my life way too much. I was like, I am not playing games with my life right now. Like, I just had way too much going for me, and I wasn't gonna go down that road. And thank God that I, you know, resisted temptation. I was around it. I've had friends that fell to it, and it was a really hard struggle. I have family members, and seeing it makes you even more like not want to be involved. But I mean, I could have went the other way though. I could have seen it and been like, I'm jumping in with you.
I feel like you know, we've all been most people in this day and age have witnessed it, or
Yeah.
have had somebody close to them, or
If you haven't, you live in a bubble. I
Yeah.
mean, let's be real. If we pull up statistics right now, it would blow your mind.
and there's no safety from it. Like, it's not like, it doesn't matter where you went to school or what town you grew up in. I feel like it's not something that's specific to anything. It's everywhere.
No, this war on drugs, and I say war on drugs because it's been a war on drugs since when did that campaign come out, in the 80s? I remember seeing the commercials. Remember that dad would like crack the egg, this is drug, this is your brain on drugs, and like all that stuff, and like that used to scare me.
Yeah.
But like this war has been going on forever. Like, is there ever going to be an end to it? Like, it's just
Some of the positives now, though, I feel are social media. I feel like everybody's talking about it more. I feel like there's a lot more resources for if you are going through anything, or for you, Leash, like, talk to us about, like, obviously you chose to go alcohol free. We're not like, for you, I don't feel like you are like,
I'm not like I'm an alcoholic and I need to be sober.
yeah,
No.
you're choosing an
more of, like, a
alcohol free
choice.
lifestyle. Yeah.
But you told us about like the physical aspects of it, like how you would get a hangover and you just didn't want to deal with that. You weren't 100%. Mentally, how has this affected you?
I mean, it's definitely have a positive impact. I think the hardest part about quitting drinking is like you don't really notice any changes right away. And then I'm talking like 2 weeks in, it's like, okay, cool, I haven't had a hangover, but like I'm not like energized, I'm still tired. I don't feel like I have like superpowers. Like, you expect some like big physical change.
Yeah.
I didn't lose any weight. Like, there wasn't any like instant gratification for me quitting. And I feel like that's probably a big hurdle for a lot of people, like once they try it out. But I will say, a couple months in, I was like, wow, this is great. Like, I don't have to plan things around like being hungover, because there was times where like I wouldn't make plans on a Sunday because I had an event on Saturday. You know what I mean? Like, and also just like relationships, like with my kids, and I would feel great in the morning, do things with them, but then like 3 o'clock be exhausted.
Yeah.
So, those little things I think added up for me. And I'm like, wow, like I can actually do this.
How has it affected you with like your husband and your friends and like social settings? And I mean, for us, we went on vacation together. We did Nashville, 3 months after you went sober, and we had the time of our lives. Like, I will say, like, you were amazing on that trip, and you didn't have one drink, and you were so fun. And some people can't, like, when they, recognize a problem and they're trying to fix it, they just can't even put themselves in that setting, which is so cool for you because you're able to, and like, you're still able to. But like, how has that affected, like, do you like decline like invites with your friends and stuff, or?
I haven't yet. I think it's scary to think about your relationships with the people in your life when you take alcohol out of the equation, because I mean, for me, drinking was like a hobby that you do together. You worry if you're gonna have like the same things in common, and like even like with my husband, like we drank all the time together. So like I was scared that being sober was going to affect all the things, all the relationships in my life, but luckily it hasn't. And I thank all my friends, because I was scared when I first started out. I was like nervous that like they were gonna be like, oh, like, come on, like, just drink. But like they weren't. They were very supportive, and I think that matters big time if you're gonna take that leap. But back to like the industry portion of it, I think it has a lot to do with like the type of people that are hairstylists, like kinesthetic learners, people that need to like actually physically do stuff. Like I feel like probably all hairstylists are that way. So I think naturally they're more like wild personality types. And then on top of that, I think it's like 70% of the industry is women. And I think naturally as women, you put a lot more pressure on yourself than men. I'll say that. I might get canceled for it. Sorry, Luke. But but the pressure to be a mom and be good at your job and always like have it together. And I feel like alcohol is a great way to escape that.
Yep.
Yeah.
It is. It's also such a it's like the type of thing that just makes you so much more comfortable in any settings.
Yeah.
You know, so if you are somebody who suffers from social anxiety or you struggle, you know, holding conversations, like that first drink opens you up. And then all of a sudden it's like, you know, you're so comfortable and you're having these conversations. And I'm talking about like events or things like that. Like that matters and it makes it easy. So I think also like, and you know, for me, like I don't drink at all right now because I'm nursing, but, yeah, I'm coming up on a year. I got you beat.
And because there's nobody to drink with.
That's serious. Like, not gonna lie, I'm pretty sure this was my manifestation.
It was. But also, I love the fact that it's like a thing now. I think a lot of people are promoting like sobriety and you know
mental health
and being alcohol free, like on social
Yep.
media. Like you see it everywhere. You see
mean-
influencers now not drinking.
Yeah.
And I think it's cool.
There's like, what are they? Like non-alcoholic
Yeah.
drinks. There's bars.
Yeah.
What's his name from Summer House? Opened
Carl,
a bar.
yeah.
Carl opened
Yeah.
a bar for like that type of thing. It's definitely a thing that
It's a trend.
it's a trend, but I don't see it going away.
Yeah.
There's also a lot more resources, I think, to deal instead of drinking, like things to do besides that. Like I feel like now you see a lot of more people into like yoga and Pilates and meditation, and there's like
Healthy living in general.
yes, I think healthy living is a lifestyle, and I feel like it's getting bigger and bigger. But going back to you, man, when you were talking about the beauty industry and like reasons why, I found a statistic on here from the substance abuse website, and they say the beauty industry, they turn to alcohol. Basically, actually, 10 to 15% of workers in the beauty industry report heavy drinking, and some of the reasons why are long hours, social interactions, high stress, being in front of clients. Like some will take, well, this is not for alcohol, but down here it says for drug use, like stimulants and stuff. Like people will take something to calm their nerves just to be able to stand in front of a client
Just to
and
get
talk.
through the day.
100%.
Yes,
Yeah.
stimulants to get them through their 12-hour shift. And that's not, and it's all industries. Like I said earlier, there's doctors that will pop Addies just to get through their night shift. And
Right.
it's every
Pop
industry.
Addies.
Yeah, they
Pop
do.
Addies.
I mean, I listen,
Popping Addies.
they do. It's every industry. And I feel like the hair industry kind of gets a bad rap for that, in the sense that, you know, for these young kids that might want to go into it, a parent might be nervous, like our dad.
Yeah.
Like he was like, no, I don't want you to get involved with that. Like I don't want to have to clean up a mess because I let you become a hairdresser.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's every industry. It's not just ours. And just from what I was reading, if you do your research, you'll see like it's up in every industry since post-COVID. So it just
Yeah.
Leash, have you had anybody? Have you had any negative interactions at this point yet
With
with like
team
being
members.
sober?
I haven't. I wouldn't say no. I think most recently, I'll say this. It's very hard in the beginning, being at weddings, you know, places where you would normally drink, but I feel like you gain so much confidence making it through that night and know that you don't need alcohol to like still have a good time and socialize with people. Like that's just like ammo for yourself. I will say like times around like my hormonal, or if I'm stressed out, you don't have that thing to cope with, or like a coping mechanism, I guess. So like figuring out how to get through a day that's been hard. Like you want to come home and crack open a bottle of wine or smoke a doobie or whatever you're into. Just kind of finding something to replace that with. So
Is running it for you?
I initially was the guitar. So I
Okay.
took up the guitar. So like if I came home and I was like stressed out, I would, you know, whip the guitar out, try, you know, throwing some chords together or whatever. Running came into play because it kind of kept me accountable. You can't run when you're hungover. So it was like, you know, I started running, knew I had to get up the next morning to go do it. I'm not going to drink because I need to do that. But it's crazy how much time you give yourself back to like actually like do things that benefit you when you quit drinking, because half the time like you're hungover or you're drinking or you're, you know, watching the game drinking, like whatever it is. I think get a lot of your life back. But I will say it's definitely not easy all the time. Like when I'm like hormonal, I just like 2 weeks, was it last week or the week before? Like I was like, dude, like I had to leave because I was just, you know, stressed out over it. Everybody was drinking and I kind of like had like a pity party for myself, which I hate even saying, but it definitely happens and it's normal. And you just kind of like got to get through it and tell yourself, you know, tomorrow I'm going to thank myself for not drinking or doing whatever that you're trying to quit. So that's kind of like how I've gotten through some hard times.
I love it.
Yeah, that's amazing.
It's inspiring, to say the least, buddy.
I do want to talk about how like that is a stigma though for hairstylists and reassure people that it's not, you know, all it's about for the hair industry too.
I wonder if there's any, like within the community, if there's any like resources for our industry specific. I know there's tons of resources out there.
Yeah.
And I love the idea of promoting alcohol free versus alcoholic.
Yeah.
You know, like that's not, you know, and listen, to each his own. You know, I think balance in general, like, you and I have talked a lot about, you know, because I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do when I'm done nursing. I don't know what my approach with alcohol is going to be, because you were a huge trigger for me. Like I'm sensitive to alcohol in general. I don't have a high tolerance for it, and I never have. Sorry if anybody has witnessed that.
If Mom's drinking, it's pretty much guaranteed she's going to puke at some point.
Literally. But I don't know what my approach would be, but I love the alcohol free. I guess it's even just the term, because to me that supports like healthy living, and I like working out, I like eating right, and when I'm not drinking alcohol, my life's imbalanced in that direction. Whereas if I am drinking alcohol, like I already know the next day I'm having pizza for breakfast, and I'm going to be drinking Pepsi until 4 p.m. because I just can't drink. But like that's what it is for me. But I just like the alcohol free term versus like I'm an alcoholic and I have a problem. Like,
When I was doing some research, because I did look up resources within the beauty industry for substance abuse, alcohol abuse, all the typical ones popped up with the 800 numbers that you can call. But there was one that kind of stood out to me, and I love the name, and it's called Look Good, Feel Better. And it's driven within our industry, and they have a ton of resources, and they touch on so many different people, like even just helping cancer patients feel better about themselves after they lose their hair. They hold workshops and teach them how to do makeup and stuff like that. But there's also mental health and substance abuse resources within that.
Is this specific to the hair industry?
Yeah.
Wow, that's great.
It's
I love
called
that.
lookgoodfeelbetter.org.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I love that.
You can check out their website.
So
why do you guys think, or I should say this first, do you guys think that mental health in the hair industry is more common? Like, do you think that people in the hair industry have mental health problems more so than any other industry?
My personal opinion, I think that is so hard to gauge, especially now. Maybe 5 years ago, if you asked me that, I would have had a better idea. But I feel like ever since, and I hate to keep going back to COVID, but I feel like after COVID, we live in a completely different world.
It's everybody.
I think everything has just struck a chord everywhere.
Yeah.
I think that social media has created this world that is so negative for mental health in general.
In what way?
In what way? I mean, I feel like, and say what you say, but like there were a couple months ago where the word autistic, quote unquote, was being thrown around so nonchalantly to the point where we're like, within a couple of weeks, I overheard people claiming or saying, well, I'm autistic. And I'm like, oh, you are? Are you diagnosed? Well, no, but TikTok told me I was. And I'm like, yeah, that's bullshit. Like,
so just like the exposure and normalizing it.
Yeah. And it's like, oh, well, you know, what do we say? I have anxiety. Like, I can't say how many times I've sat down in interviews and that's the first thing that's delivered to me. And I'm like, okay, like, are you diagnosed with anxiety? Is this something I need to know about? Do you feel anxious? Like, how does this go? I just feel like the terms when it comes to mental health sometimes are thrown around so nonchalantly that they, you know, I can't say that I feel that they're they're 100% true at times.
Yeah.
And I could be wrong. And listen, I do think that there are certain scenarios and certain people that certainly 100% have their issues with mental health. I think that is a thing. But I also think social media has done a severe disservice to so many people by throwing that agenda on them. And, essentially like, listen, stress is stress. We all stress. I had a shitty day at work. I had a stressful day. That doesn't mean I'm diagnosed with some, something. It doesn't mean that. And that's my personal view on it. But would I say that our industry, I don't know. That's a tough question.
I mean, I will say substance abuse doesn't help any of that.
No.
Like life's hard enough. If you do suffer from anxiety and you're like drinking or whatever, I think that definitely adds fuel to the fire.
It 100% does.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that goes back to healthy living in general. Like there's ways to control things and help things and make things better, and exercise, healthy diet, yoga, meditation, all of that stuff is essentially going to fuel a healthier being.
Dopamine.
Whereas, alcohol, drugs, unhealthy living is kind of going to drag you deeper into an unhealthy mental state, in my opinion.
So what would you do in the situation where you have someone on your team? Actually, let's do it as like a teammate. If you weren't a salon owner and you had a friend who had an issue, like what would you go to your boss? Would you?
All right. Well, listen, I've been in a situation where I physically had to go to somebody's house and have a conversation with a friend, a very close friend of mine, but I would probably say my best friend at the time. I had to go to his house and have a conversation with his mom about it because that's how much I cared about him. I was like, I'm not watching the ship sink.
Yeah.
And I'm going to do anything I can. And in that moment, however old I was, I knew that, in that moment, I have to go to them. And that's the only way that I can feel good about myself is if I'm an advocate for them, because they can't be an advocate for themselves right now. As a business owner, I feel that we as business owners, salon owners, leaders in general, you have a commitment to the team, the business, the brand, to number one, we need to show up for one another. We need to do better. We need to be better. And if there is somebody on our team who is suffering and it's visible to me or it's brought to me, I'm going to do my best to help them get help. Number one, right? That would be number one for me. Number two would be if they can't get help or if the situation is becoming severe, then they can't be a fit for us anymore. And that's essentially the conversation that would be had.
Yeah.
We've had it several times now.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, both scenarios that I'm referencing, the person has left the company.
Yeah.
That's my personal experience. I'm not sure about you.
I mean, it sucks. It's like you want to do all the things to be able to help them, but you also have a business to run, A, and B, like, they're under the influence and in your building, like there's so many things that could happen and so many like liabilities. But I think, taking a leave is a good option if it's not working out. And also like sometimes people are on their own journey and they have to hit rock bottom before they do anything to help themselves. So, yeah.
Absolutely. I think the leave thing's big. Even if that's just a scenario where, you need to step back, do some self-reflection and figure out what you want your path to look like. And sometimes that's staying in the industry. Sometimes it's not.
Yeah.
But as owners, I feel that we, in that specific scenario, if there was ever a time where we had to have a chat with somebody about that, I would likely let them know, in the future, if things change, we would welcome you back.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's so hard. So that was a deep dive into the dark side.
We're all not drug addicts though, by the way.
No, we're not. But anyway, thank you so much for tuning in today. I hope you found value. I hope that you saw that we were just trying to shed light on some things in our industry that aren't talked about often. So we'll catch you on the next episode of the Go Ham Podcast.